Hi, everyone. This is the first of many episodes of our new show, Through the Eyes of a Cricketer. As you know, I'll be bringing the experience of how cricketers see and feel their game. I'm very fortunate today to have none other than Monty Panesar, the English left-arm spin bowler, who has played 50 tests for his country. I believe he's a sensational person to have on the show, as I believe he's got many experiences he can share with us regarding Through the Eyes of a Cricketer. Welcome, Monty, to the show. I appreciate your time. It's an excellent person to have on the show, especially as our first episode. Thank you again. Now, Monty, there's a lot of things I can talk about your career, but one of the most fascinating things for me is the way in which you challenged yourself on many spheres and played at the highest level. What we're trying to do in the show is actually see what it's like to be through the eyes of a cricketer. So I'll be talking to you about matters that deal with you through your eyes and how you felt. And the classic way to start is your first test. When you were selected for your first test, run us through how you felt.
Yeah, I remember the meeting the night before when Andrew Flintoff, he was obviously the captain at the time, and he was going through each player. And when he got to the 11th player, he mentioned my name. And for me, it didn't really sink in. I didn't really understand what was going on at the time because I always felt when I went to the trip to India that I'll probably just go there to gain experience on subcontinent pitches, go back and try and have a good, successful career at county cricket. That was my expectation, and suddenly I was playing in the first test match, and I remember going quickly to my room, jotting all the fielding positions, and went to Flint Andrew and showed him these are my fielding positions for each batsman, and he obviously was quite surprised by that, but he liked, that proactive, doing proper study against the batsman, knowing so I'm clear in my mindset when I go out on the pitch.
So, do you have a field setting to each batsman, or was it just a general setting for your
I
field?
think I went through each batsman
Okay.
just to clarify for myself, and then when we're on the pitch, we can obviously discuss other options.
So, take me back to Nagpur, your first test in India in 2006. An amazing place to start, an exhilarating atmosphere. One of the things we'll talk about is the actual venues that you play cricket at and the feeling you had, which is undeniably different in every ground you play. But in particular, Nagpur, your first experience. Tell us about that ground feeling when you arrived and what you felt.
Yeah, I basically I found that the ground was obviously um, very big ground, and the noise was very loud. Um, oh,
Yeah.
that was very good.
Well, an overwhelming start. I mean, I'm surprised you can talk about it at all, quite frankly, because you're possibly numb to the whole event. You're going out to play, you're on the field, you're throwing a few balls down to one of the mid-off or mid-on fieldsmen. Surely that moment must have been spellbinding. And your first wicket as well, which we'll get to. But tell us about the first overs you bowled. How did you feel?
Yeah, I remember bowling to Wasim Jaffa my first few overs, and it was just getting into a good rhythm. And I think throughout that spell, I remember at the end of the day, I think that first innings I bowled like 40 overs for
Wow.
80 odd runs. And I remember Harbhajan Singh saying to me, he goes, well, that's a really good, Singh. That's a good spell of bowling there.
So he called you Singh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wasn't, obviously, you only get to witness how much of, superstars the Indian cricketers are in India when you actually go there and you witness it, how they worship like gods and fans flock to them whenever they go out to play cricket, the whole stadium erupts, and nothing, you don't get that kind of experience anywhere else in the world. Maybe at the MCG, when playing an Ashes test match, but anywhere else you don't get that same as you do in India.
Amazing. I mean, I can just imagine how incredible that was. Okay. Again, look, your first test wicket. My gosh, it was Sachin Tendulkar. I can't even imagine bowling to him, let alone him being your first wicket. Talk us through that.
Yeah, that was the second day when I bowled in the morning, and was again just finding my rhythm, finding my groove, trying to bowl tight lines. I remember Sachin, it was a good length ball, and he drove a couple and hit him to the boundary, and just his balance up the crease and the way he just got to the ball and he read the length so well. It was amazing. It was amazing just to get that opportunity and to bowl to someone that great. Normally, when I bowl in England, that sort of length is just defended or inside edge. I tend to get a wicket, but just the way he picked the length was that was the difference I found between him and other batters I bowled to. And then that one ball just skid on and it hit his pad, and I appealed, and obviously Alimdar gave the wicket, and I think that's when that celebration started. When I ran towards point, and all the fielders were catching me. It was yeah, it was amazing experience.
That's actually become your signature celebration, hasn't it? You're
Yeah,
renowned for that.
exactly. That because he's always been my hero. I remember when I was 10, I would get up in the morning, watch the '92 World Cup, watch the '96 World Cup, and followed his development and his progress as an international cricketer, and how he became a dominant figure amongst world cricket, and then have that opportunity to be on the same field as him. It sometimes can be for me. I was a little bit starstruck, but as a player, I think if I was advising young players now, I would say don't try and be starstruck by by your heroes. I think you just got to compete with them. I think when I first made my debut, I was probably a little bit overawed by the occasion and the superstars that were playing in the Indian team at that time.
It's interesting because I've spoken to Monty off camera before about what is, to me, an impressive component of your career. Maybe not so much in the early stages, but now you've helped the Australian team immensely recently with the likes of Stephen O'Keefe and Matt Renshaw in Brisbane here in Australia. And that to me impresses me no end. And again, the concept of through the eyes of a cricketer is exactly that, being able to impress upon a Steve O'Keefe or a not Monty, your Monty Panesar, but a Matt Renshaw as to what they believe they should be feeling at that moment, and through their eyes, what they should be feeling and doing. Now, you've clearly impacted both of those players. They're playing fantastically in India, not in the recent time. They're two players that have grown another arm and leg in playing. And in Steve O'Keefe's example, he's bowled so well. Run us through that. I think there's a lot more than just simply playing in you. You're a particularly good coach and mentor. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, well, I think what really helped with my coaching is I did the level 2, and then I did the level 3 um, coaching badges back home, ECB coaching badges, and the biggest thing I found was through coaching is actually getting to know the player and spending time with them, really get to know who they are as people, what they activities are like off the field, what they're like on the field, what kind of foods do they like, what hobbies do they have. Because I remember when I was at Campbelltown and Camden, and I did the under 16s Green Shield. I was a coach for that, and also the under 21s, and I was coaching some of the youngsters. And one week they were like really um, playing really well, doing everything really good, and then the following week they didn't do the same drills as well. And I kind of obviously came up to the player and said, like, what's happening here? How comes you're not bowling the same way? And he was saying to me, I'm really nervous about my driving test. I've
Right.
actually got a driving test coming up next week, and I'm thinking about that. Am I going to pass? And am I going to not? And I know it's very trivial, it's very small talk, but it's actually getting to know the person, knowing, right, there's a driving test coming up next week, or someone's got an exam, or someone's worried, someone's had a really bad argument with a girlfriend, or they're tense about their own performances. Once you get to know players, it's easier to coach them and easier to exchange information. I find it very difficult when I don't know someone that well and I talk about cricket, but I don't know what's going through their mind. They could be having a lot of things that's in their mind, and then that information doesn't resonate as well.
It's amazing. It really is relevant to what we're talking about here through the eyes of a cricketer. Again, they could play well one week and not the next, but it's more than just what we see on the surface that's driving that change in performance, isn't it? What you've said there. It's very, very relevant points. And I wonder how many coaches actually go that length that you're describing.
Well, this is my personal experience, and I've always found with all the great coaches that I've worked with, and I've been very lucky with, they've all said you've got to coach your way, and what makes it easier for you to coach. And like sometimes you do really hard, intense training, and then that same player would perform really well, but then in a match situation he'll freeze.
Okay. All right. I want to take you back to one of your dismissals. Which briefly talked about the Tendulkar dismissal. You've talked about getting an LBW, which was an amazing feeling, the way you reacted. Another classic dismissal for me was Inzamam Al-Haq. Now, you know the one I'm talking about, of course, don't you? Well, we've got it on film here to show you. Tell us about that. Run us through that reaction. It was quite hilarious.
Yeah, I was obviously quite surprised how he managed to lose his balance and hit the wicket. I'm sure he's done that a few times, or that was just a one-off. But yeah, hit wicket. It's been a lot of people talk about that wicket.
Did you have a chat to Inzamam post-match or any of the matches post that to talk about that?
He's actually is a very funny character,
Yeah.
and he's got a great delivery in terms of how to be funny and the timing of his jokes, and he's just he doesn't say much, but he says enough, and you always find it very funny. He's got a great sense of humour, and he's a great personality.
He certainly is. So that was one of the most interesting wickets you've taken in terms of the hilarity of it, but it still counts as a wicket for you, doesn't it? There are other matches. For example, Joe Leach from Worcestershire, he against you seemed to have no idea about another dismissal. We've got that to show as well. Take us through that. You were playing for Essex at the time?
Yeah, that was Essex against Worcestershire at Worcestershire home ground. And James Foster just came up to me and said, Joe Leach does hit the ball really well, so let's maybe try over the wicket, and there's foot marks from the seamers. If you catch one of them, maybe we'll get it to glove or create some uncertainty in his footwork. And I managed to sort of catch the rough, and I think he's just trying to leave it and hit off stump.
It was almost Warne-like in one of his deliveries to Mike Gatting that time, which was equally as stunning.
Yeah.
I think, mind you, your dismissal was even more incredible because he didn't play a shot at all, which I thought was very interesting. There were also moments with Stephen Smith. One of the particular deliveries he bowled to him which absolutely floored him. I think he bowled him off stump. Do you remember that delivery that you bowled that time?
Yeah, I do, and that footage I always show to young spinners or batters that I coach, because we talk about footwork, we talk about where the ball is delivered, and the distance between the bat and where the ball delivers. And in that dismissal, you see Steve Smith's feet at the crease, and where my ball pitched was a good length ball. So the distance between where the ball pitched and his bat is at its greatest. So that gives me time for the ball to spin and pass his bat. But currently, when you look at how subcontinent players play, they actually get their feet towards the ball and where the ball pitches, so the bat and the ball has shorter distance, and therefore it's difficult to beat the bat, and that's where it imposes challenges for me to create uncertainty in their footwork, because eventually what I want is the batsman playing from the crease, so then it gives me the most amount of distance for the ball to turn and beat the bat.
That's very insightful. I'm very impressed with that. It makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering whether our viewers have had that experience themselves with that type of delivery. I'm certainly now thinking that way when I go to bat next, which won't be at a very high level, by the way. But anyway, another thing, that, again, Matt Renshaw, did you bring that up with Matt Renshaw recently? Was that something you talked to him about, the length between his feet and the bat?
Matt Renshaw was more worried about Ajay Jadeja, Ravinder Jadeja,
Yep.
Than Ashwin, because I think with Ashwin he felt ball turning away, he could give himself room and play with his hands. He finds it more dangerous because Ravinder Jadeja drifts the ball in and spins it in and bowls tight lines. You never see him drift the ball away. He always bowls tight lines, so he's always making you play. So what one adjustment we made was we got his back foot to, it was quite parallel at the crease. We turned it a little bit, and that opened up his hips. So when the ball was turning into him, he could able to then transfer that ball into mid-wicket area, into square leg area, much more easier. But when his hips were closed, then that ball would turn, and he would find it difficult to maneuver the ball into the mid-wicket square leg region, and that's where the inside edges come into short leg. And by opening up the hips, that then takes away the short leg guy, and he can actually transfer his weight into that area.
That's that's very relevant. I mean, most batsmen don't do that. They have their feet square on rather than front on. Excellent. Very
so
good
just a slight adjustment.
Oh, certainly a significant adjustment, I would
Yeah.
argue. Okay, back to your career. Now, you've played 50 tests for England, and by no means are you over. As far as I'm concerned, and as far as I think the English selectors are concerned, they're knocking on your door very shortly for another tour, hopefully to a country like Sri Lanka, as you've suggested. What do you see? Most cricketers, to me, they want to finish on a high point at the end of a career and go out with a crescendo like a Warne did when he finished his test career. You've got a lot left in you. What do you see through your eyes as a cricketer? What do you see in your future now? What are you visioning in terms of playing again for England?
I think my first aim is, obviously, when I go back to England, I need to get myself a county and then resume my first class career. That's the first aim, and then once that starts happening, then hopefully I'm able to put in some good performances, show that I'm bowling like I used to, and then the ambition is still there to play cricket for England and hopefully make another comeback. Obviously, as the older you get, it does get difficult, but
You're only 34.
Yeah, 34. So
Adam Bowe just started past that age, his first Test match. So
yeah, exactly.
you've got a lot in front of you, I think, especially as a spinner. Look at Bradley Hogg, of course. He's played well into his 40s, hasn't he?
Yeah. So these type of players motivate me, knowing that that they can do it. So hopefully I can do it as well.
Fantastic. Just on the topic of a Bradley Hogg, he's playing a lot of Big Bash here in Australia, the obvious chances of IPL. What's your thoughts on that shorter form of the game? Through your eyes as a cricketer, would you look forward to that more in the future? Are you interested in playing more of that shorter form?
Yeah, I would love to play T20 and one-day cricket. I want to develop my white ball cricket and learn how to be effective in one-days and T20. So that's something I still want to get involved and play more cricket.
It was interesting because they showed Rangan Nehera the other day. Now as the leading left-arm wicket taker, I think, in the world. I think he's just surpassed. Was it Vittoria? I think it was Vittoria. In your case, your name came on that list immediately, and I remember seeing that with 147 wickets. To me, you've got a long way to go, and you've got a long career ahead of you, and you could easily go well and truly into the numbers that the likes of Rangan Nehera have done.
Yeah, I would love if that happened. If that happened, maybe we can revisit and have an interview like this.
Absolutely. I think we're going to have you more often on this series, as a matter of fact, not just with these episodes, but into the future. Certainly is my thoughts as well. Okay, another aspect. I've just noticed your shirt. You've got crossover symmetry there. Tell us about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, crossover symmetry is a rehab shoulder exercise program, which I was fortunate enough to get involved with to help rehab of my shoulder. Errol Olcott, who's been the physio over the last 20 years for Australia, he's been treating my shoulder, and he introduced me to crossover symmetry, which our rehab was shoulder strength exercises for baseball pitchers, and now it's been introduced into cricket with rehab, and it's really helped with my shoulder. I was obviously really worried when I came here in October, not knowing will I get my shoulder ever fixed, but Errol Olcott and crossover symmetry has really helped me to get my shoulder strong again, and I'm obviously confident that I'm able to hopefully resume my first class career when I go back to England.
Well, it's a great point. I mean, again, through the eyes of a cricketer, in my opinion, the tragedy or the frustration of an injury can devastate you in a major way. Now, you spent 12 months, didn't you, on the sidelines with this injury? Talk us through that, how you handle that mentally.
It's suddenly your expectations as a player, you have, like, throughout the season, you have games, and and there's certain games where you know you're not going to play a huge role, but then you know other first-class fixtures are where the ball will turn. So you kind of pre-prepare that a little bit. You kind of on the pitches that don't turn as much, you protect your rhythm, make sure you're bowling good overs, and your rhythm is in a good place. And if you bowl 20 to 30 overs, pick up 2 or 3 wickets going at 2.5 and over, and you'd be happy with your job there. And then you get on a turning track because of the good rhythm that you've created from the previous games. Then you just hit your straps and you get your fifers, and you build on that. But when you have an injury, you don't think like that.
Yeah.
You suddenly just think, how's my next training session going to go? How's my shoulder going to go? When I'm going to play my next game? How is my rhythm? And the body starts changing as well. The body becomes cricket fit when you're playing cricket day in, day out. Suddenly the body becomes slightly not as cricket fit. You don't spend that time on the field that you need, like 90 overs in the day. That type of fitness is really important. So that's why my coach at Northant said you should come to Australia, play a whole season here, work on your shoulder, get the match fitness as well as cricket fitness, and then hopefully when you come back to England, you'll be in a better place to resume your first-class career.
Along with your time at Campbelltown, Camden Ghosts.
Yeah.
And that would have helped you a great deal of exposure there. And you took 6 wickets recently, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, so I played 10 games and I took 8 wickets, and then obviously in the one day I took 6. So I guess finally I turned up, which was last game of the season for Campbelltown and Camden. So they were obviously very relieved that I was managed to show some form that I used to bowl like I back in the old days. So it's hopefully, I feel pretty confident at the moment, and I like to carry that when I get back to England.
Again, I can't say enough about Monty's life. He's obviously been a very good cricketer, but I think there's a lot more to that you than just a cricketer. I mean, the so-called following you've had in England and the likes of Australia has been phenomenal. Forgetting your bowling, which is an obvious part of your play, but even your batting and your fielding have come under a lot of attention. Tell us a bit about that, your mindset when the crowd erupts to a fielding effort or even a batting effort.
Yes, it's obviously overwhelming, all the fans supporting you, but also you want to perform as well. You don't want to. You want people to applaud your efforts, and the fans obviously want to see me do well. So I remember the Cardiff Test match against Australia, where I managed to, I think for 45 minutes, managed to just play the wrong line, and we managed to get a draw there. So that was obviously really good, and the crowd there was very supportive and were on edge of their seats every ball. So they were unbelievable.
Fantastic experience. What's your favourite stadium that you've played at in the world?
Well, there's a few. I've enjoyed Wankhede Stadium.
In Mumbai, of course.
In Mumbai. I've also the SCG in Sydney, Lords, Old Trafford in England. So these are my favourite stadiums. We
were talking off air about through the eyes of a cricketer and the idea of how different grounds have different effects on you. And you weren't able to give an answer so easily. It's something that's a different thought process, isn't it, to talk about what you've experienced going on the ground, the smell, the feel. Can you elaborate a bit more on that side of it? Take, for example, a Nagpur or an Indian pitch?
Yeah. So Nagpur, I went practice session, and it just felt normal, like normal cricket ground. And then on the match day when we went there was all the Indian cuisines outside, and I got very hungry because of the smell of the food. And I obviously wanted to eat some, because my family always say the best food in India is actually the food out on the streets that they make. So my attention went there when I should be focusing on the test match.
I can assure you, if that was me, I'd certainly be. My attention would be on the food as well. Monty, another question that I'd like to ask you is around the Pakistan Super League, which you've been a part of in some form. Actually, were you invited to play?
Yeah, there was a ICA, which is a cricket agent in England, who I think manages Misbah and Syed Ajmal. They asked me, like, would you want to play in the final? And I was saying, Well, PSL have done remarkably well to get that final at Lahore, and I said, Pakistan Zindabad.
Well, to me, again, the PSL is a very, it's exciting to see cricket back in Pakistan, namely Lahore, at a final. That to me is extremely exciting. They deserve to have more cricket. Despite the fact that the games were played in Dubai initially, the final was Lahore. I can see development there in the future. What are your thoughts on that development for Pakistan?
That's brilliant. We must say, you know, PSL Zindabad, Lahore Zindabad, and Pakistan Zindabad.
There you have it. I think that's a fantastic way to summarise that. Again, Pakistan are amazing the way they've been able to play generally away from their home ground, which is a travesty to their fans, without a doubt. To me, they've been playing in Dubai or Sharjah. That to me is great grounds, but that's not where they should be playing. They've developed a great following there, I must say, but it'd be lovely to see them back at Islamabad, Lahore. Again, Gaddafi Stadium, Lahore is a ground of great note. It's to me equal to an SCG or a Lords in the way the atmosphere is carried there.
Yeah, I think it's a great a huge step, you know, for Pakistan cricket that the PSL, the final was played at Lahore, and there was a lot of the top T20 at the moment, current top T20 players like likes of Darren Sammy, promoting that, and I think it was brilliant because that's what Pakistan needs. You know, Pakistan needs international cricket in Pakistan, and I would love to see more games to be played there.
Even Marlon Samuel said that it was his second home. I even saw some footage of Viv Richards, I think it was his birthday, celebrated in Pakistan. And it was just great to see. It was humbling that cricketers are loved all over the world and they should be exposed to that country. It's a travesty. It should be more often played.
Yeah, Pakistan, you know, needs cricket, international cricket in Pakistan, and the fans of Pakistani fans, they have been deprived of international cricket in Pakistan. So hopefully more cricket can be played in the future, and I think this is a huge step for the future of international cricket being played in Pakistan, because the PSL is a great concept, you know, that the Pakistani board has created, and getting all the top international sports people, T20 players playing in Dubai, Sharjah, Abu Dhabi, and then the final in Lahore. You know, what a brilliant stepping stone for the PSL and for Pakistani cricket.
Absolutely. We've got it here. I think that we'll see Monty not only play for England again, but he'll be dabbling in the PSL and even the CPL and BBL in the future.
Yeah, I would love to play in the PSL and get involved in the CPL and all the other T20 leagues. I would love to, you know, play T20 cricket around the world.
We might have to call you Monty Hogg, perhaps, a combination of Brad Hogg and yourself, in terms of when you're in your 40s.
Yeah, or maybe Monty the Turbinator.
Exactly. There you have as well. Thanks for your time, Monty. I really appreciate it. You've been a wonderful guest. Our first guest on Through the Eyes of a Cricketer.